I'm Richard Jones, the City Clerk, and on behalf of the elected officials and my fellow city employees, I'd like to welcome you to the City of Newburyport's 2014 inauguration. To start with a negative, please be sure to turn off your cell phones or any electronic devices you may have. So I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge some of the current and former elected officials who are with us today. We have Representative Michael Costello, Sheriff Frank Cousins, the Honorable Mary Ann Clancy, the Honorable Mary Carrier, the Honorable Byron Matthews, Honorable Lisa Mead, the Honorable John Moak, the Honorable Chris Sullivan. I hope I have not missed anyone. If I did, my apologies. We also have with us today the family of George Lawler. Former Mayor George H. Lawler passed away February 12, 2013. He was, in summary, a lifelong, dedicated public servant without equal. On behalf of the entire local community, I'd like to express my condolences to the family, and I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I think you can sit down. This is making me nervous. Today, Donna D. Holliday will be sworn in as the 68th mayor of the City of Newburyport, first mayor in the history to be sworn in for a 4-year term. There will be 11 city councilors sworn in, 5 of them new, 6 returning. There will be 3 school committee members, all newly elected. There are 3 school committee members that are here on the incumbents. The process today essentially has 3 parts. First, the city council is organized. That's followed by the mayor's oath and address, followed by the organization of the school committee. Now, if you'd be so kind, again, to stand and remain standing for the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance, national anthem. The invocation will be done by Reverend Christopher Nye of the Central Congregational Church.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a great privilege and honor to be with you this morning. Please join me in prayer. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast and our eternal home. On this day when we celebrate the history of Newburyport, we gather with glad and grateful hearts. We give thanks for the creativity, intelligence, and tenacity of all those people who came before us to build the city that we enjoy as a place to live, learn, work, and play. In this moment when we witness the democratic tradition of change and continuity in our civic life, we humbly ask for your blessing. Watch over and guide all of those who have committed themselves to public service. Inspire the mayor, members of the school committee, school board members, municipal employees with a renewed commitment to the task of governance, and renew in all of us a commitment to the common good so that we might be faithful stewards of the legacy which has been handed to us by generations past. In this time of often divisive communication, may our legitimate differences not impede our ability to hear one another and to forge a durable consensus to honor those things which we cherish. And above all, dear God, we ask that you guide us in the paths of wisdom and compassion, intelligence and justice, that we might care for those in our community who are most vulnerable, the poor, the elderly, the young, and the stranger. And so with the poet, we remember that 1,000 ages in thy sight are like an evening gone. So keep our eyes fixed on you and your intention for our lives, that you might be our guard while life shall last and our eternal home. Amen.
Will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the Newburyport 3rd grade Brownie Troop. Please remain standing after that. my mistake. I didn't want to share any spotlight up here. Right now, I'm pleased to introduce Councilor Megan C. Kinsey, who will now sing the national anthem.
Honor God. Present out.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Why do I want to say play ball? I mean, that is just marvelous. So following that, we're now going to organize the city government for the year 2014 by calling the city council to order. Councilors-elect, please state present when your name is called. Councilor-elect Edward C. Cameron, Jr.
Present.
Thank you. Councilor-elect Barry N. Cannell. Councilor-elect Robert J. Cronin.
Present.
Councilor-elect Jared J. Eigenman.
Present.
Councilor-elect Larry G. Junta. Councilor-elect Allison Hartquist. Councilor-elect Ari B. Herzog.
Present.
Councilor-elect Megan C. Kinsey.
Present.
Councilor-elect Thomas F. O'Brien.
Present.
Councilor-elect Charles F. Tontar.
Present.
And Councilor-elect Bruce L. Vogel.
Present.
We will now do the oath of office collectively by taking, as I read it, your name. Please then stand, raise your right hand, and repeat your name. And then we'll continue to do the oath together collectively. I, Edward C. Cameron.
I, Edward C. Cameron.
I, Barry N. Connell.
I, Barry N. Connell.
I, Robert J. Cronin.
I, Robert J. Cronin.
I, Jared J. Eigenman.
I, Jared J. Eigenman.
I, Larry G. Junta.
I, Larry G. Junta.
I, Allison Hartquist.
I, Allison Hartquist.
I, Ari B. Herzog.
I, Ari B. Herzog.
I, Megan C. Kinsey.
I, Megan C. Kinsey.
I, Thomas F. O'Brien.
I, Thomas F. O'Brien.
I, Charles F. Tontar.
I, Charles F. Tontar.
And I, Bruce L. Vogel,
I, Bruce L. Vogel.
do solemnly swear
Solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
and perform the duties of
and perform the duties of
Councilor of the City of Newburyport,
Councilor of the City of Newburyport,
to which I have been elected
which I have elected
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth,
laws of the Commonwealth,
the Charter and ordinances of the City of Newburyport,
Charter and ordinances of the City of Newburyport,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Please be seated. Thank you. The meeting is now called to order. We'll now proceed to elect a president of the City Council for the year 2014. Councilors, please announce your choice for president when the roll call is made. Councilor Cameron.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Connell.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Cronin.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Argument.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Junta.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Harquist.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Herzog.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor Kinsey.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
Councilor O'Brien.
Thomas Francis Paul.
Councilor Tontar.
Thomas Francis Paul O'Brien.
Councilor Vogel.
Thomas Francis O'Brien.
By a unanimous shocking vote, Councilor O'Brien. At this time, I'd like to ask the newly elected President of the Council to come to the podium to deliver his address.
I don't know how to follow Megan Kinsey. That was actually A++, fantastic job. I have trouble speaking like that, the way she's singing. It's unbelievable. First of all, I'd like to say Happy New Year to you all. And I'd like to thank the mayors for being here, the previous mayors. I've been here, this will be my 17th year. Unbelievable, 17th year in the City Council. I've served with many mayors. I've served with Mayor Mead, Mayor Clancy, Mayor Carrier, Mayor Lavender, Mayor Moak, and Mayor Holliday. I just missed serving with Mayor Chris Sullivan. He left in December. I started in January, way back in 1998. I would like to thank the residents of Ward 6 for giving me the opportunity for the 17th year. Like I said, it's unbelievable. Starting in 1998, I was elected, and they voted for me for 17 years to be their city councilor. It's been a great honor and privilege to represent this ward since 1998. Like I said, I served with many mayors, and it's been a great time. We've seen many changes in the city. I would also like to thank my present city councilors behind me for unanimously supporting me for my 9th term as president of the city council. We will not always agree, believe me. We will have some difficulties on issues, but I just hope we respect the opinions of everybody on the council if they're different from ours. Everyone should have that opportunity to speak their issues very clearly. This will be an interesting year for this city council. As Mr. Jones said, we have lost 5 city councilors. We've lost Councilor Dick Sullivan, who served for 2 years and also was on the school committee. You know, I leaned on Dick very much, being known a lot of the history, like lived here his whole life like I have, and I leaned on him for his opinions, and I had a lot of questions to help with him, which he helped me very much. Steve Hutchinson, he probably served 4 or 5 years back and forth. He lived in Ward 6, and he was very helpful to me. If I was away or whatever, I would count on Mr. Councilor Hutchinson to help the residents with any questions they might have. We also lost 3 ward councilors who, in my opinion, were tremendous. We had Tom Jones, who served 8 years with the city council. He served on planning, and he fought on the landfill. He gave the opinion, he gave the views of you the resident. He looked over the taxes better than anyone that I've ever met in my life on the city council. He will be a great loss, and hopefully we will hear his opinions in either the Daily News or if he comes to speak before the city council. He will be a loss to the city. There's Brian Darabin, who I think I served about 6 years with Brian, the Ward 5 city councilor. Brian attended, in my opinion, more meetings on the landfill and made more visits to the landfill than any human being I've ever seen. He was there constantly representing the Ward 5 residents on that landfill, which has been an issue for years and still has hopefully will be closed in the coming year, this year, hopefully. But Brian did a great job for the residents of Ward 5. And also, we're losing Councilor Greg Earls, who ran for mayor as Councilor Dick Sullivan did. He lost in a close election, but he served 12 years for the residents of Ward 2. The South End residents, the Apple Street Park residents, the downtown merchants, Greg Fort, Hardin Long. But those 3 ward councilors, the passionate love they had for the city will be missed. And hopefully they will give us some opinion of theirs over the years. In the new council, we have 5 new councilors, 4 new councilors in my mind, 1 returning councilor, Councilor Vogel, who did a great job representing Ward 5 when he was here previously. But these councilors bring experience in zoning, economics, budget preparation, business ownership, planning, school building needs. They have some great expertise. It'll be my job as president to put them on the committees that will serve best to the city and to them. Hopefully I have done that, and they will be announced tomorrow. This year, the mayor has been talking about the 250th history of Newburyport. And just to tell Council Cameron, I wasn't here when it started 250 years ago. So I don't want any comment, but I just want to give you a few comments on growing up on Atlas Street in the 146, or the 1960s and 70s. How it was just in Atlas Street in that area, how it has changed, and how I grew up and love the city of Newburyport, and still love the city of Newburyport. I've lived here all my life, but I grew up on Atlas Street, and down on Atlas Street, within 2 or 3 city blocks, we had corner stores everywhere. We had on the corner of Purchase Street, 2 or 3 of them, Lime Street, we had the corner of Middle Street, Orange Street. All those now are now residences. You know, we had schools. We had the Jackson School, which is now torn down. We had the French School, St. Louis de Gonzague School, which is now a resident. And we also had the IC High School, where I had the pleasure with Mr. Rieger being the last graduating class in 1964. And that is now an apartment building. So those are some of the things we had. The downtown was amazing. The downtown, there were so many things to do as a youth growing up in the city. We had the YMCA where you would go. They had a nice basketball court where even poor shots like myself could get one from half court because the court was so short, so that was a great time. And we also, and Mr. Carter was there, who's father of the Droman Carter. He was there helping the youth, develop the youth. You know, that is missed. That is burnt down in years past, and now what now is the library, the wing of the library. But the Y was a great thing for the kids, for the students in Newburyport growing up. Just on Pleasant Street, just give an example on Pleasant Street and, so we say State Street. State Street had 2 furniture stores, Watch's Furniture Store, O'Brien's Furniture Store, right on State Street. The whole city was in the north end and the south end. There was no west end. That was all fields. Up on the west end where the Moose is now, there used to be a bowling alley and a roller skate rink. Being my great skills, I didn't roller skate very much, so, bowling I like, so that's something we could do. We had 2 movie theaters right in downtown Newburyport. We had the Port Theater down at the end of Pleasant Street, and across the street on Green Street, we had the Strand Theater. You know, 17th century, you go see 20 cartoons and Tom Mix movie. Heck of a way to bed Saturday morning, an afternoon. It's a great time growing up. So. You know, we have the library. The library, we didn't have computers and texters and everything. You would go to the library to read, and there'll be a lot of students there, and they're very, very, very helpful, because that was what we had. We didn't have the internet. You know, we just had the library. That's how we did all our research. We had hardware stores. We had Light & Kelly's. We had Peavy's. We had Cashman. All of State Street and Market Square. Unbelievable stores we had. Clothing stores. You get on Pleasant Street. We had Craze. We had Stevens Clothing Store. We had Puritan Clothing Store. Women's Clothing Store. We had Lincoln's. We had Kresge's. We had Newbury's. You know, there were so many things that were important. It was exciting to grow up there. It was, you know, very exciting to grow up there. I think it's about Light & Kelly's. That was also down there. I'm sure. Also, food stores, Kennedy Butter and Cheese, if anyone's old and lived here more than 30 years, probably remember Kenny's Butter and Cheese, which is now where Reginald's is, and that's where the general store was too. You could buy anything town that you needed, you could buy at the general store. There was a beauty salon, Harold Thompson's beauty salon, who was a city councilor in Newport for 16 years, representing Ward 6, and I've had the pleasure of representing Ward 6, like I said, for 17 years after that. So growing up, it was a lot of fun growing up. You know, I enjoyed it. You know, I think the youth, we had a lot of things to do. I mean, if you wanted to call your neighbor, the phones at that time were, you had a party line, so you pick up the phone and someone else would be talking and listen. So it would be easy, you just go knock on someone's door. At that time, you would text them and say, hey, Joe, you want to go out and play? No. You'd go over and knock on the door, and you'd yell, Roger, you want to come out? That's how you communicated back then. It was a great time. We had, like I said, we had the Jackman School where we played baseball, we played basketball, we played tackle football, even though it was time. It was a little weird, but, you know, we had fun. We had fun, so, you know. Like I said, I lived in Newport all my life. I've enjoyed it. It was a great time living here, growing up, and it's a great time now. And in the coming year, there will be changes. And change is good. You know, we had, like I said, we had a great time in Newport in the 60s, and then we had a little downside. And thankfully for Byron Matthews, George Love, Jack Bradshaw, they saved the city. And they did urban renewal, and the city didn't go down. It came alive. So those changes were excellent. And in the coming years, there will be changes in the city of Newport. We'll have a 4-year term for mayor. We will have the opening of the new grammar school, the Bresnahan School. Thankfully, they kept that name, and hopefully it'll open on time. You know, if it opens on time, you know, it's going to be great for the school. If you ride by there, look, that is a mammoth school. It's going to be great for the kids. And then they'll be able to tear down the old Bresnahan School and those portables. Thank God. I mean, all I have to say is those teachers and students that went through that and worked those portables should be praised for doing one heck of a job with our students. And those portables were supposed to last for 10 years and lasted about 30 or 35 or whatever. But that will be torn down. Hopefully we'll start the development of a new community senior center. Hallelujah, it's about time, you know. And lastly, we have the waterfront. I was looking through my papers when I first ran in 97, 98. The issues were the waterfront, what a surprise, parking, well, the two main issues, and water, and should we give water and sewage for miles. The waterfront, you know, like I said, in 17 years since I've been campaigning, it was before then, too, there was an issue with the waterfront. Hopefully this year, we can compromise, get together, develop something on the waterfront, and get things done. And you know, it might not be what you want, but let's compromise. We have to compromise. Let's get things done and move on. I think it'll be a great time to do that in this new year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, for those sharing those moments, those reflections on history. I'm a little bit too young to remember some of that. I learned a lot. I say this every 2 years. I have to be reappointed. I need to be very careful. Right now, the Newport High School Band will play an excerpt from Festive Overture.
appreciate waiting in Northern Forest to hear their music. To me, it's one of the best parts of this inauguration, hearing the youth in the city with their talents helping us here. I'd like to, City Council is now organized. I'm going to ask Councilor Hartquist and Councilor Tonda to go down and escort the mayor until we're ready as we are organized. Thank you. Please rise for the mayor, please.
I'd like to ask Jared Holiday to please come join us on the stage. Even though it's heavy, I'd like to ask you to hold this. Let me explain what this is. This is a book of common prayer given to the Third Parish Church, which was located in Market Square at the time. You'll see, actually, there's an image of it right in front of you there. It was given in 1750, so it's quite old. And it was located for us by the Newburyport Archival Center in our library. So, Jared, if you can come a little bit closer. While your mother, Donna Dembski Holiday, takes the oath of office. Place your left hand on the Bible, which you have done, and raise your right hand, please. And repeat after me. I, Donna Dembski Holiday,
I, Donna Dembski Holiday,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
and perform the duties of mayor
and perform the duties of mayor
of the city of Newburyport,
of the city of Newburyport,
to which I have been elected,
to which I have been elected,
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth,
the laws of the Commonwealth,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Newburyport,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Newburyport,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Mary. We'll now have a musical selection from the Mullen School Children's Chorus, who will sing Cape Cod Chanty Traditional. Next, we have for you a stroll through history. The following 7 students from Newburyport High School will read reflections on the storied history of our city. They are Stephen Simpkins, Molly Stanton, Lily Donovan, Julia Kipp, Kelly Conway, Emily Bresnahan, and Colin Bazzino.
A stroll through history, the 1600s, the beginning. Old Newbury, as it was originally called, was settled, incorporated, and assessed its first taxes in the spring of 1635. It derives its name from Newbury, a town in Berkshire County, England, about 50 miles west of London. It was so named in honor of Newbury's first pastor, Reverend Thomas Parker, who preached in Newbury, England before his arrival in America. Newbury originally included what is now Newbury, Newburyport, and West Newbury. At first, the settlers concentrated their settlement on the edge of the Parker River, though by 1700, lots had been laid out along the bank of the Merrimack River, soon referred to as the waterside. The early inhabitants engaged solely in agriculture. But within a few years, some began to seek their livelihood in the rich resources of the river itself, fishing, boat building, and trade. Newbury eventually became one of the largest towns in the county. It was 13 miles long and 6 miles broad in the widest place, and contained 30,000 acres, of which nearly 2,000 were covered with water.
Early 1700s. Amos Noyes speaks of our first meeting house, the Third Parish Church in Market Square of 1725, and the first 2 ministers, Reverend John Lowell and Reverend Thomas Carey. In such a community, luxury or even comfort in the modern sense were entirely unknown. Probably during Mr. Lowell's ministry, there was not a carpet or stuffed chair in the whole Riverside village, or a mirror larger than a pane of glass. Wood and peat were the only fuel, coal being unused until after Mr. Carey died. There were no stoves except for foot stoves either in houses or in churches. The communion wine was drunk out of pewter mugs, and what was left was given to the pastor. There was no fire in the meeting house, even in the coldest weather. The minister took a large part of his pay in spare ribs and vegetables, and other useful things for housekeeping. Inhabitants continued to settle along the river. After much reluctance, the First Parish Church of Newbury grants permission for the Port of Newbury settlers to build a meeting house known as the Third Parish Church, and Market Square is chosen as the location. While in town visiting family, Benjamin Franklin studies the lightning strike on the Third Parish Meeting House steeple. Later, the lightning strike is included in his writings on electricity. Old Hill Burying Ground is established behind the Frog Pond. The first Presbyterian meeting house, later known as the Old South Church, is established on High Street near Federal Street. The shipbuilding and West Indies trade grows and becomes a foundation for the prosperous expansion for the waterside settlement for the next 100 years.
Late 1700s, population about 2,800. Sarah Smith Emery discussed the yellow fever outbreak that occurred during her childhood. The yellow fever brought from the West Indies broke out. From the first few cases, it rapidly grew to an appalling epidemic. Over 40 persons died from the disease, amongst them Dr. Sweat, one of our first physicians. Fear and consternation seized the population. Few from abroad ventured into the place, which as the fever increased became completely panic-stricken. Many hurried away. Others shut themselves in their houses. Business and pleasure were alike suspended. A pall seemed stretched over the summer sky, and death appeared borne upon its soft breezes. Ropes were drawn across water and other streets, barring off the infected district. It was difficult to obtain attendance for the sick and the dead without funeral rites, and tarred sheets and pine coffins were, at midnight, carried to the grave in a rude vehicle of rough boards. During the next few years, the Waterside people filed a petition in 1763, and on February 4th, 1764, the area of Newbury, known as the Port of Newbury, is incorporated as a separate town of Newburyport. The first two Plum Island lighthouses are built. The Second Congregational Society, now the Central Congregational Church, is constructed. Wolf Tavern opens near Threadneedle Alley on Fish Street, now State Street. United States Revenue Cutter, Massachusetts is built, the first revenue cutter to enter active service, laying the foundation as the birthplace of the United States Coast Guard. Early 1800s, population grew from 6,000 to 9,500. Margaret Cushing reminisced about the days of thriving shipyards in Newburyport. In my childhood, Newburyport was a maritime town. All the most promising young men went to sea or worked their father's counting rooms, from which the ships on long ocean voyages were directed. There were 3 or 4 large shipyards in Newburyport, where ships were built and from where they were launched. The launching of one of our ships from the yards of John Currier Jr. was a great event. We were always allowed to stay at home from school on these eventful days. A crowd assembled from all parts of the city, and I well remember the intensity of my feelings when all was ready for the men to cut away the grass, which held the ship on the stocks. Even now, I can hear the blows which preceded the first trembling of the great ship before she slipped slowly and majestically into the water. During the next few years, the town purchases land for a public way under the Market Square Meeting House for $8,000. The new meeting house, the Unitarian Church, is completed on Pleasant Street. Shipbuilding and international trade, including the New England rum, continue to flourish. The Great Fire of 1811 destroys the downtown. The courthouse, custom house, powder house, and the market house, later known as the firehouse, are built. The Institution for Savings is incorporated. Native Henry Coit Perkins takes the first photograph in the United States. The late 1800s, the population is about 13,500. Charles I. Pettingill writes about his neighbor, Candy Brown, during the 1860s and 1870s. Candy Brown lived directly across from our house on Bromfield Street, and in part of his dwelling he manufactured candy, the likes of which cannot be found today. Candy Brown, he was called, a hard-working, close-figuring, obstinate individual who undoubtedly was considered an odd stick, chiefly because he had ideas of his own and was consistently loyal to them. 4th of July was a great day for Mr. Brown, but not so pleasant for the women of the neighborhood. Although he was English-born, he was a sturdy American in principle. Every Independence Day was observed with a national salute fired first at 6 o'clock in the morning, repeated at noon, and again at 6 in the evening. It was his custom to fire 1 gun for each state in the Union, 36 at that time, and to execute this honor he used a small cannon, an old musket, and a shotgun. During the next few years, Newburyport is designated as a city in 1851. City Hall was built for less than $30,000. The 5-cent savings bank is incorporated. The Cushing Guards militia answers President Abraham Lincoln's call and marches to the capital of Washington. Shipbuilder John Currier Jr., who built 100 ships, launches the town's last square-rigged sailing ship, the Mary L. Cushing. Hat factories, cotton mills, shoe and carriage industries, and toll silversmiths are thriving.
The early 1900s, population about 14,500. Minnie Atkinson, author of Newburyport in the World War, discussed the importance of community gardens tended by school children. When the demand for increased food supply was made, early in the spring of 1917, the school children of Newburyport already had earned an enviable reputation for skillful and industrious gardening. Such gardens had become a popular part of their education. Gardening was done on Saturdays and after school hours, and in no way interfered with the school curriculum. In Newburyport alone, there were over 1,000 gardens. In 1917, there were in the city about 2,000 children between the ages of 5 and 15 years. About 1,000 of these cultivated gardens. During the next few years, after nearly 200 years of a thriving shipbuilding community, the city turns to manufacturing. The automobile is becoming popular while horse-drawn carriages are on the decline. Cotton mills are on the decline, but shoe production continues with over 40 shoe and boot makers. The aeroplane Flying Fish makes 3 short test flights on the Plum Island dunes and marshland. A few years later, Plum Airport opens for commercial flights. A new high school on Mount Rural is completed. While several neighborhoods are demolished, Route 1 overpass is constructed.
(1950s to present). Population increases to over 17,000. Like many communities, Newburyport was at a crossroads. By the 1950s, most of the city's factories and mills had closed, as well as downtown businesses due to the economic climate. Storefronts were left empty, and the federal initiative of urban renewal loomed large and threatened to demolish the heart of the downtown. Author Jean Doyle observes, "Square dancing, church socials, school productions, the Jimmy Day Parade, and Yankee Homecoming all played a part in overcoming the feelings of depression from a poor economy. If one looked below the surface, however, one could find a reason to hope that the spirit that brought Newburyport back on its feet after the embargo, the Great Fire, and the recessions of the 19th century would revive Newburyport in the 20th. Newcomers viewing the images of dilapidated buildings and figures of high unemployment could see only part of the picture. Few people could see it at the time, but the signs were there. Change was on the way. The stage was set. All we needed were the players. Those players emerged, citizens and community leaders. They established the Newburyport Art Association, led the restoration of our historic downtown, and created the Firehouse Center for the Arts. An industrial park provided a catalyst for economic growth, and civic organizations and volunteerism continued to be the backbone of the community. Yankee Homecoming, restoration efforts, and the bicentennial celebration stimulated the interest in local history and renewed the belief of many that Newburyport's history was its greatest asset. Today, Newburyport is a Coast Guard city, home to Cultural District, the Clipper Heritage Trail, rail trails, and Plum Island's beautiful marshes and beaches. It is the result of hardworking volunteers, residents, elected officials, and professionals. Newburyport is the pride of its residents and attracts thousands of visitors each year. Today, we begin the celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Port of Newbury becoming Newburyport, now led by Mayor Donna D. Holliday, elected to the first four-year mayoral term.
Well done. Thank you very much. Now, Mayor Holliday will recognize the former mayors, and she will do that with the following Immaculate Conception students: Eli Anderson-Song, Michael Finnegan, Henry Bowden, Jeremiah Mackin, Kiva Coppinger, Alexandra Prober, Eleanor Fremont Smith, and Alice Little.
Thank you. I appreciate the Immaculate Conception students joining me in recognizing the great efforts of our past mayors. I'd like to start with the Honorable Byron Matthews. The Honorable Lisa Mead. The Honorable Chris Sullivan. The Honorable Marianne Clancy. The Honorable John Moak. And I would ask that the family of the Honorable late George Lawler come forward to accept his gift. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, Mayor Mary Carrier and Mayor Al Lavender could not be with us today, but we will extend their gifts also at a later date. Thank you. Sheriff Cousins, Senator Ives, Representative Costello, Mayor Keiser, representative from Congressman Tierney's office, honorable mayors, city councilors, school committee members, residents, my family, and friends. It is an honor and a privilege to stand before you today, humbled by your renewed confidence in me to serve and continue serving as your mayor, the first four-year term in the history of Newburyport. This morning, I have sworn before you the same oath that 67 mayors before me have taken, pledging my commitment to the office, its duties, and to you, the citizens of Newburyport. Newburyport is a magnificent city, and today we begin the celebration of our 250th anniversary. Our city has played a major role, a significant role, in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as the United States of America. You heard a few minutes ago, so eloquently presented by our high school students, a stroll through the history of our city. The students talked of diverse and important stories of peoples and events that must continue to be told. As we gather together over this next year, we have the opportunity to share and to learn in the beliefs and principles that have shaped our city for the past 250 years. The common themes that consistently emerged of a resilient community, of the inspiration of our forefathers that brought prosperity and unity to make a better life. In 1725, as you heard, the Waterside people came together and asked the First Parish Church for their own meeting house, a request that was finally granted in 1764, and thus began the town of Newburyport. In 1796, Dr. Timothy Dwight described the city. Newburyport lies on the southern shore of the Merrimack River. The town is built on a hill of unrivaled beauty. The slope is easy and elegant, the soil rich, the streets sweet and clean, and the lush vegetation, wherever it is seen, exquisite. And at a small distance from the shore, Plum Island, a wild and fantastical sand beach. From the 1700s to today, we can trace the integrity, industry, and courage that persevered despite the rise and fall of industry and trade, and yes, the call to arms. The city was frequently described as the place of enlightened social values and progressive dialogue in the United States, with our residents being noted, particularly for their hospitality and generousness to strangers. This generosity is one of our core values of our community, the foundation, the fabric of our community, taking care of one another. This initiative began in support of the widows and children who had lost, from sailors who were lost at sea. Many of these institutions are still in existence today. The Howard Benevolent Society, the Society for the Relief of Aged Women, the General Charitable Society, and the Relief of Aged Men. Today, we can be proud of the extensive network of nonprofit organizations that provide a range of services and support in our community. The YWCA, the Salvation Army, the Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center, Opportunity Works, Roof Overhead, Turning Point, the Learning Enrichment Center, Pennies for Poverty, the Council on Aging, and so much more. These vital agencies must be supported to ensure we maintain and strive to support all generations and the needs of all individuals and families living in our community. Volunteerism is a natural outgrowth of this generosity and another core value rooted in our history. In 1811, the Great Fire tore through our city, destroying over 900 buildings and leaving 90 families homeless. The stories of the heroic deeds of citizens standing shoulder to shoulder, manning buckets to extinguish the blaze is truly inspiring. Surrounding communities came to aid in fighting the blaze, and within days, donations were pouring in from across the Northeast to support the businesses and families with their losses. Newburyport has honored this exchange of support at times of crisis, and mutual aid continues today as a vital public safety program. Volunteerism is also a critical component of what makes our city work. Hundreds of residents serve on boards, commissions, committees, and ad hoc groups to serve a wide range of our city needs. I encourage each and every one of you to give the time of what you can, your time and talent. Every hour matters. Whether volunteering for our schools, our parks, special events, or fundraisers, we need your help to continue to build our community. The words spoken in 1925 by the Honorable Mayor Michael Cashman continue to ring true today. We want to keep Newburyport in the forefront. A city with a soul. A city with a vision of greater things to come. And a city that is willing to work for the health and happiness of all its people. Industry is clearly another key value that was critical to Newburyport's development. It was critical in order for us to adapt and to survive in these changing economic times. After more than a century of a thriving shipbuilding and trade community, the city turned to manufacturing. This was the late 1800s. In 1881, the mayor, Robert Couch, stated, "If we put into this industry the same energy our fathers put into commerce, we will be prepared once again to take our place as a growing and thriving community." Manufacturing, in fact, did succeed, with shoemaking and textiles surpassing shipbuilding in the years of transition. Transportation advancements also had an impact on our economy, and as the region shifted its focus from sea and rail to the interstate. On this front as well, Newburyport had to respond, and it responded decisively, and the Lord Timothy Dexter Industrial Park was created. Bill Plant wrote of the dedication ceremony. This formal dedication is recognition of more than a plot of ground. It is the recognition of the sacrifice and vision of hundreds of citizens. It is recognition of the commitment of our new industrial future. Today we see the park in a broader context, the Newburyport Business and Industry Park. It now supports leadership in the semiconductor industry, microbrewers, microprocessing, electronics, woodworking, green technologies, and more. And it continues to evolve and adapt to the changing needs of the workforce of the Merrimack Valley and beyond. Newburyport's transportation initiatives are an integral part of our green community and long-term sustainability plan. Present-day transportation planning and politics must recognize that livability and economics are intertwined. Livability and walkability are what draws new residents and new businesses to our community, both who are so important contributors to our quality of life. The rail trail and the expansion, the Whittier Bridge project and the building of the shared use path, and the ability to connect Amesbury, Newburyport, and Salisbury rail trails. Our first transient-oriented design, a residential, affordable housing project to be developed near the train station, are all examples that illustrate this new direction that we are focused on. Civic pride is another theme that is rooted in our city's history. It motivated George Cashman, the first Yankee homecoming chairperson, to action in creating this festival that still exists today. In 1958, Yankee homecoming was born. And this 10-day celebration had a significant impact on attitudes towards our city. George Cashman recalls, attitudes began to change, especially when so many people coming from outside our city spoke of how beautiful Newburyport was and how much it had to offer. Cashman described the pride that citizens started to take in our history, and during future homecomings, other historic creative events were added, amplifying this pride. This dedication and perseverance drove the restoration of our downtown and our city's economic recovery. Urban renewal was no longer equated with demolition, but with preservation. Mayors George Lawler and Byron Matthews and a handful of committed citizens were successful in securing the future of our city, ensuring the preservation and rehabilitation of our downtown with its rich architecture and maritime heritage. With the aid of federal funding, the Newburyport Redevelopment Authority was born, and our downtown was restored and revitalized, with new investments in restaurants, retail shops, small businesses, and the arts. Newburyport has a long history of supporting the arts. The historic building that today houses the Firehouse Center for the Arts was built as a market house and a lyceum by the citizens of Newburyport in 1823. It hosted distinguished speakers of Daniel Webster, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Oliver Wendell Holmes. It was fitting that in 1991, through a cooperative public and private effort, that the Firehouse Center was restored to a public center for the arts, and that it will continue to serve the community for generations to come. Today, our city continues to honor artists, authors, actors, playwriters, and musicians through festivals, the Literary Festival, concerts, film, and theatrical events. We recently have been designated by the state as a cultural district, the 19th in the Commonwealth, which will unite all of our artistic, cultural, historic, and tourism efforts under one umbrella to showcase all our city has to offer. I want to extend my thanks to Representative Costello and Senator Ives for supporting our application. Lastly, we come to the topic of education. The support of the education of our children has a long history within the city. In 1887, Honorable Mayor George Jackman stated, "The wealth of our city is not in its money or its acres, but in its children." I ask you especially to consider and provide for the public instruction of our youth. And the Honorable Mayor Robert Burke stated in 1910, "Your very highest duty is to see that our schools are of the very best." Education and workforce collaboration have had a dramatic impact on the future direction of public education. We have an obligation to prepare our children for the future and build that interest in careers that are known to be in demand in today's society. Those in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, as well as healthcare, finance, and others. We must also recognize the effect that budget cuts has had on other programs, foreign language, arts, music, theater, and continue our efforts to restore these offerings. Our schools are moving in the right direction under the leadership of our new superintendent, Susan Vaccaro. Transitioning to the Common Core, implementing strong mentoring and professional development programs, and a new teacher evaluation system, completing a comprehensive technology plan, strengthening special education, developing new partnerships with local universities and colleges. These are all important steps to help ensure that the next generation of Newburyporters are best equipped to enter the workforce with the skills they need to succeed. Within the next several months, we will finally have 21st century facilities to educate our children, with the completion of the new Bresnahan Elementary School and the renovations to the Knockmolin School. But new facilities are not enough. We must renew our efforts and support statewide initiatives to address the need for changes to state funding for public education, including full-day kindergarten, charter schools, and special education. I ask each resident to work with us to attend school committee meetings and neighborhood meetings to support the efforts of the Newburyport Education Foundation, because we must all recognize that the education of our children is of highest priority. We have worked through some very difficult economic times that have impacted our nation, our state, and our community. I know I speak for many here, and extending my thanks to our federal partnerships with Congressman Tierney and Senators Warren and Markey, and our state partnerships with Senator Ives and Representative Costello. We appreciate all of the efforts you do to support our work, many of those initiatives we've addressed here today. As we move forward, we will continue to build city services that are innovative and responsive while working to improve our efficiency and effectiveness to meet the needs of every resident of our city. Again, I ask you for your support, to join us, to share your gifts, to continue to help move our city forward. Leaders are assessed by their courage, judgment, integrity, and dedication. Together with the core values I've shared with you today about our history, the values of generosity, volunteerism, industry, perseverance, and civic pride. They have shaped our city over the past 250 years. These will be the principles that I will continue to aspire to as I serve as your mayor. In closing, let us take a moment to pause and consider all of what Newburyport means to us, to celebrate our history and commit to working together to shape our future. We must recognize there is so much more that unites us than divides us. We must always honor and learn from our past and use the lessons we have learned to achieve our present goals. And as we work together to shape the future for those who will come after us. Happy 250th anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Believe it or not, all this has happened during the city council meeting. So my job now is to close the city council meeting, and I'll take a motion from somebody who's usually Tom Jones, but he's not here, so I would like a motion to close the meeting. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much.
Now we'll organize the 2014 school committee. For the oath of office, we'll swear in three. So the three newly elected school committee members, as I read your name, please stand and repeat your name, then continue the oath together with me. I, Stephen P. Cole.
I, Stephen P. Cole.
I, Michael T. Lukens.
I, Michael T. Lukens.
I, Cheryl G. Sweeney.
I, Cheryl P. Sweeney,
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
and perform the duties of
and perform the duties of
school committee member
school committee member
of the city of Newburyport,
of the city of Newburyport,
to which I have been elected
to which I have been elected
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
in accordance with the Constitution of the United States,
the laws of the Commonwealth,
the laws of the Commonwealth,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Newburyport,
the charter and ordinances of the city of Newburyport,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God. We'll take a school committee roll call right now. Please answer present when your name is called. Cole.
Present.
Decanter.
Present.
Holiday. Lukens. McCarthy. Menon.
Present.
Sweeney. The next order of business is to elect the vice chair for the school committee. When I read the roll, please announce your choice of vice chair. Cole.
Cheryl G. Sweeney.
Decanter.
Cheryl G. Sweeney.
Holiday.
Cheryl G. Sweeney,
Lukens.
Cheryl G. Sweeney.
McCarthy.
Cheryl Sweeney,
Menon.
Cheryl Sweeney.
And Sweeney.
Cheryl Sweeney.
We're now going to hear some remarks from Vice Chair Cheryl Sweeney.
Unfortunately, the mayor stole every single word I was going to say about the school. But she is the chair of the school committee, so that's perfectly appropriate. Thank you, Mayor Holliday. Good morning, city councilors, members of the school committee, citizens of Newburyport, and guests. I stand before you today honored that I will be able to continue my dedication to the students of our schools, and for this year, my role as vice chair. I stood before you 2 years ago, excited about the possibility of building a new school, and I return today with the realization that because of much hard work by many of you here today, we will open the new Bresnahan School in the fall of this year and finish up the renovations at the Knockmolen campus. About a year ago, Mayor Holliday asked me to chair the Superintendent Search Committee. The citizens of Newburyport were very clear on the characteristics they wanted to see in a new superintendent. A background as a teacher, a standing superintendent, a commitment to rigor in our schools, a good listener, a lifelong learner, and someone who would dedicate themselves to the education here in our city. Someone who would inspire principals, teachers, and students, and be responsive to the public. It was a tall order. The committee, many of you who are here today, dedicated many hours in this process, searched and found our superintendent. I would like to recognize our superintendent of schools, Susan Vaccaro. Susan has been with us only since July, but since her arrival, our schools have been on the move, and we look forward to our continued work together. We have been educating students here in Newburyport for 250 years. That's quite a legacy in itself. And 2014 will find us continuing our work. The school committee has set goals for itself, and we have placed student achievement at the very top of that list. In the words of Bill Gates, every life has equal value. To turn caring into action, we need to see a problem, find a solution, and deliver impact. With your help, we will continue to strive for excellence and make all of you proud to educate your children in the Newburyport school system. Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you. We'll now hear America performed by Joe, Jared, and PJ Holiday. call upon Reverend Timothy Harrison from the Immaculate Conception Parish to offer benediction and a closing prayer.
Some years ago, a wise old nun was dying in her convent. She was the Mother Superior of her order, and there were many other younger nuns who had gathered in her cell to keep vigil by her bed. And they were doing their very best to make her as comfortable as possible. When she looked up and said, "I thirst," immediately one of the novices ran to the kitchen and brought her a glass of warm milk. They put it to her lips, but she refused to drink. Then one of the older nuns took the glass and returned to the kitchen. From the back of one of the cabinets, she opened and pulled out a bottle of whiskey that the sisters kept there for medicinal purposes only, and poured a generous amount into the milk. She then returned to the Mother Superior's bedside and lifted the glass to her lips. To the great surprise of all of the novices, she took a sip, and then another, and then yet another. And after a few moments, she had finished the glass and opened her eyes. "Mother, Mother," the young novices cried, "tell us your final words of wisdom before you die." Clearing her throat, the Mother Superior looked out the window towards the farm, and then looked back at the nuns and said, "Don't sell that cow." Wisdom comes to us in many different forms. We read this morning from the Book of Wisdom. "Desire, therefore, my words. Long for them, and you will be instructed. Resplendent and unfailing is wisdom, and she is readily perceived by those who love her, and found by those who seek her. She hastens to make herself known to those who desire her. One who watches for her at dawn will not be disappointed, for she will be found sitting at the gate. For setting your heart on her is the perfection of prudence, and whoever keeps vigil for her is quickly free from care. Because she makes her rounds, seeking those worthy of her, and graciously appears to them on the way, and goes to meet them with full attention. For the first step towards wisdom is an earnest desire for discipline. Then, care for discipline is love of her. Love means the keeping of her laws. To observe her laws is the basis for incorruptibility, and incorruptibility makes us closer to God. Let us pray. Good and gracious God, today we ask for your blessing upon our city on its 250th anniversary. In the months ahead, bless and protect all who will serve the people of Newburyport. In a special way, today we ask for your blessing upon Donna Holliday, your servant, as she begins this new term as our mayor, and as well as the members of the school committee and the city council who come before us to begin their work for this new year, 2014. Guide them with your wisdom. Grant them strength and fortitude to do your will. Help them with your insight. Lead them with your gentleness and compassion. And may all who work to administer and facilitate the many needs of Newburyport do so with justice and integrity. In all things, keep us mindful of those who are most vulnerable in our community, especially the homeless in this winter weather. We ask this in your most precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Father Harrison. On behalf of Mayor Holliday, you are all invited to a reception at the Nicholson Hall at the Greek Church on Harris Street here in Newburyport. Please remain in your seats until the officials on the stage have exited the hall. Thank you so much for coming. Have a most happy and healthy New Year.